Welcome back to the Path Towards Freedom, advice to yesterday self. We're going to talk about something that I find a little cringy and embarrassing, but whatever, here we are. My relationship with money and the advice that I have to yesterday self. So, we're going to talk mostly about my 30-year-old self. So, when I refer to inner child work, that's inner trigger work. You're working on the triggers that you have or the belief structure that you have from childhood, but it doesn't stop with, 5-year-old you or 8-year-old you. I take that into every version of myself. So we're going to refer to my 30-year-old self today. She was a hot mess. Like hot mess. Um, I had gone through a series of relationships where before, like being single, I would have financial flow. And then I would get into a relationship and I would become financially depleted every single time. And I couldn't figure out why. And then the most fucked up part of it all was I was holding on to these relationships for a sense of security. I wasn't dating wealthy individuals. They were way worse off with their relationship with money than I was. Um, but it was like a sense of, I don't want to do it alone. I'm afraid to do it alone. I spent my childhood alone. I spent my teenage years alone. And I was so tired of being alone that I would settle and hold on to a relationship that was completely dysfunctional. And when I look back, I know it was for safety. It was if something goes wrong, there's a backup. If I can't make it, there's a backup. Not that I ever took advantage of anyone financially, but it was this little operating mechanism in my fear based ego self of don't do it alone. Like we can't do it alone. It's impossible to do it alone. So I would latch on and hold on to these crazy toxic relationships in fear of being alone and being a single mom all over again, which was the majority of my life. So it's funny what we do without recognizing why we're doing it. And I had no idea that that's what I was doing. So, spending time with my 30-year-old self recently, I shared with you in the first video, I had this crazy psychic phenomenon where all versions of me showed up into my home and we had this loving moment. And it was, oh, God, ugly crying. And then it turned into happy, ugly crying. And I'm not a crier. So that was super fascinating, but awesome at the same time. And when I was sitting with my 30-year-old version of me and looking at her in a very toxic relationship, oh my goodness, I don't know why. Oh, so cringy, but here we are. The things that are presented to you, the things that you are most afraid of, are your opportunities to conquer, to level up, to awaken into your power, to ascend into a higher version of yourself. And so at 30, I was making the transition fully from doing both what I'm doing here and the corporate world and contracts. And I knew I was over it. I knew I was done. And I ended up really unwell. I went through some cancer. Um, and really dove into this crazy healing journey. But that meant I had to use up all my savings, which was not easy for me to do because financial was the very last thing that I healed. If I didn't have a safety net, oh, I was in panic. I was not okay. So holding on to these relationships, and I look back on all of the relationships, and it wasn't codependency emotionally, but it was, I really need to feel safe and secure, as we all do. It's a normal human thing, but it was so dysfunctional with it. So I sat with my 30-year-old self, and right after her, after I went through finally breaking up with the narcissist and discovering myself, I went through a whole bunch of other things, which we'll talk about in another video. But it was the realization of, what do I want to do about this fear? Like, how do I want to navigate this fear? How am I going to survive? Because money will consume you. The fear of money will consume you. Oh my gosh. I would spend hours crying, frustrated, figuring out like, well, how do I get gas for my car? How do I get groceries? Like I went through a really dark phase with my financial flow. And several times, 30 was the last time I was like, okay, we got to conquer this. We got to face this. And when I was 30, I realized I had an identifying moment where, okay, this is something that keeps resurfacing for me. What am I going to do about it? And it's a choice. I have the choice to stay in fear and panic and then look for the next thing to latch onto that gives me some sense of security or safety or a backup plan. I don't fucking know. Or do it alone. And that was my advice to her. As I went into that memory bank of where she was before she left the narcissist, I sat with her and I was like, do it and do it alone. I want you to prove to yourself that you are capable. Do it alone. Do it for you. Do it for your passion. And when it comes to stepping into purpose on this planet, into divine purpose, or any purpose really, if there's not passion and a knowing of purpose, you're not going to make it. And her passion was being dimmed by her fear of security. So I couldn't stay in the passion piece. What I know now for fact, financial flow is the aftermath of happiness. The higher your vibration, the more joy you are experiencing, the more love you have in your life for yourself, for your purpose, for your surroundings, for Gaia, for the animals, for like, I am, whoa, I can look around and say, thank you, I love you 100 million times a day because I'm just captivated by the beauty that's here for us. Wasn't always the case though. But the more you focus on your passion, the more you will transition into trusting your passion and honoring it and not giving up and not letting that fear conversation take over. I would spend days, weeks, months in, oh my God, I need like another this much money in order to be able to do this. And, like, how am I going to do it? And going into panic and being like, oh, okay, strategizing. And okay, what contract can I take on in order to navigate that? Or what do I do? And how do I like, oh, so crazy. It consumes you. It would put me into a state of paralyzed. I'd be paralyzed in my fear. I would go to bed and cry. I would nap it off as a trauma response. I wasn't living and thriving in my life. And so when I was sitting with her, I pointed all of that out and I was like, I'm on the other end. Here's what you need to know. You need to do it and you need to do it alone and you need to do it for yourself. You need to do it for that fire that's burning in your heart that says, I know I want to create change in this world. And when you figure that out, baby girl, everything changes. Everything changes. And your vibration, will be your experience. Your vibration is your experience. The only thing that interrupts that flow is the story that the ego self wants to go to based on what it's experienced over and over and over again. So you're going to sit, you're going to look at what is it that I'm absolutely afraid of. And I promise you, you have nothing to lose by moving into joy. Your stress is still going to be there. The money's still going to be the same. You have an option. You can look at your financial flow and you can look at trying to continue walking the path that you want to walk. And you can stress the fuck out of it. You can get neurotic. You can calculate. You can do all the things. You can go into fear. You can feel sick over it. You can go right into survival mode. Or what have you got to lose by telling a different story? What do you have to lose about this is me conquering it? What do you have to lose about using music to up your power and be like, watch me? You've got nothing to lose by switching that story. So do it and do it for you. That felt so liberating. When we go back into past versions of ourselves and we rewrite the script and we be the voice of reason or the voice of confidence or the voice of love for that version of ourselves in your subconscious, it switches the way you hold on to energy and it can liberate you. Your vibration is the belief structures that you own in your subconscious, the hidden stories. And so when you look at your life and you're like, okay, there's lack over here, there's frustration over here. It's a belief that's creating that vibration. It's a belief that's creating you looking through that story and recreating it over and over and over again. So you have nothing to lose. I understand how impossible that feels. I understand. I remember the first time I saw Wayne Dyer, and he was like, it's a mindset. You just got to start telling the same story. You just got to start walking that path. Whoa. And I was like, but you have no idea. And he was adamant. He was like, no, this is what you do. And I'm like, it does, like, how though? How can I walk that when I have all of this happening? When I have, like, I don't even have a pot to piss in. How? And it took me way too long to figure that out. Way too long. I promise you, you've got nothing to lose by changing the story. You've got nothing to lose by saying, I am doing it regardless. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for the fire in my heart. Just Own the story, own it, because you're going to have the same outcome. Well, you're not going to have the same outcome. You're going to be experiencing the same moments until you change the vibration. So you're going to experience the same moment. So if I have lack, what have I got to lose by telling the other story? You don't. And if you change it and you own it and you figure out what belief is holding you back, mine was a fear of security. I am not secure. I was alone my whole childhood, my whole teenage years, with a tremendous amount of neglect and abuse and a lot of bullying, like a lot of challenges, because I'm very different. Um, and so that sense of feeling alone for so long meant I wasn't safe. I was not safe. I was harmed all the time. I was beaten down all of the time. And so my fear of security, from the example that I had, from the experience that I had in my youth, alone means unsafe. I just want someone to protect me. I just want someone to be my backup plan. I just want to have someone there. So if something goes wrong, I can navigate this. I don't have to do it alone. Do it alone. Trust me. I did. I walked away from that narcissistic relationship. I did it the hard way, which is part of my fucked up journey here. Is like I do it the hard way and then figure it out. And I'm like, oh, don't do this. Instead, do this. Um, like I've been in the trenches. Oh my goodness. But do it. Do it alone and prove to yourself you are here to experience your highest timeline. That's inevitable. You are here to experience your highest timeline if you allow it. And in order to allow it, we have to look at where are the fears? What am I conquering? What am I learning so that I can bring that forward for the rest of the people in my life, in my sphere, or in my divine purpose? Huge perception switch. So do it. Do it alone. Do it for the fire. I promise you, you've got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing. It will happen. All right. Until next time, go look in the mirror and find 1,000 reasons to say thank you. I love you. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.